The industry will continue to grow. That part is a fact. It's just doing that. But it definitely looks like a lot of the business is going towards the larger corporations that are now starting to provide drone services. So the little guy, just, the mom and pop business, if you will, just doesn't seem like the real moneymaker I guess we thought it might be a couple of years ago.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 199. Is the drone industry meeting your expectations? That's the big question that I posed to Doug La Farge, CEO of DT Aerial Systems in Boulder, Colorado. My interview with Doug is part of a series of interviews with independent drone operators to get their perspective on the rewards and challenges of starting a business today. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Doug talks about what's worked and what hasn't so far in building his drone-based business. But before we hear from Doug, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Now you have the option of making a one-time donation in any amount by going to droneradioshow.com/donate. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. And if you'd like to make a monthly contribution, you can still go to patreon.com/droneradioshow. So let's hear from Doug La Farge of DT Aerial Systems as he shares his experience in the drone industry to date. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Doug to introduce himself.
Yeah, so my name is Doug La Farge. My company, I have kind of two of them going right now. The first one is DT Aerial Photography, which we started about 4 years ago. We're based in Boulder, Colorado. I also started another company up doing effectively the same thing, but just with a different partner called Green Sky Systems.
So 4 years, that pretty much makes you an old timer in this industry, right?
Oh, yeah. Where's my cane? Yeah.
Why did you get involved in the commercial industry?
Well, I think it was just like, I think a lot of people just saw a huge opportunity. We certainly saw, my business partner, Tom, and I saw the potential of what drones were going to do in various different sectors across various different industries, private sector, public sector, so on and so forth. So it was, for me, a good time to think about kind of making a career switch. I was a little tired of being a web programmer and a web developer, so saw the opportunity and we jumped in.
Did you jump in on a full-time basis or did you start part-time?
It was actually part-time to get it going. It actually worked out pretty well. The company I was working for was phasing out their web development department. So they were able to keep me on part-time early on, and then eventually it kind of transitioned away from that entirely. So I'm kind of doing this full-time.
How long have you been full-time?
I would say probably a little over a year.
What type of jobs do you typically do?
I would say we've been really all over the place. I mean, we'll take any real estate shoot or something like that if it comes up. I definitely got a lot of emphasis in mapping and modeling, doing a little bit of training on that front, doing some consultation and training either with pilots or sometimes with a local company. But it's been really everything, inspection, just anybody that'll pay attention to the fact that we're offering our services.
Are the results that you're getting meeting the expectations that you had when you came into the industry?
In the end of the day, I'd have to say no. But there have been some expectations that have been met. But at the end of the day, I think I would just say we really haven't. I thought we were going to be further along. I thought that the industry was going to be more accepted across these various different sectors. I think it's just not until this year that we're starting to see really the decision makers ask the questions that they need to be asking. Anybody that's been in this business, you say an old timer, back in the day, was what do drones do and how can they be used? And I think it just took longer for them to be embraced than I anticipated.
Is it just the time factor, you think, that's affecting your satisfaction? Or are there other aspects of the market that didn't fall into place?
I would say the time factor really is a big one. It's pretty wild, I think, what we are doing with drones when we're doing stuff with the technology.
How do you find your jobs?
I will say one thing, that we've got more jobs off of our website this year than we did the first 3+ years. So that was encouraging. It's kind of slowed down, just, it being winter and the end of the year. We're starting to ramp up and being a little bit more aggressive with getting out there. And that's what we plan on doing as we get into, January, February. But, it's like everybody else. We're just sort of trying to close the books, finish down, enjoy the holidays, and see what happens next year.
So what do you think is going to happen next year? Are you looking forward with anticipation, ambivalence, or apprehension?
Probably all of the above in a lot of ways. I think that the industry will continue to grow. That part is a fact. It's just doing that. But it definitely looks like a lot of the business is going towards the larger corporations that are now starting to provide drone services. So the little guy, just, the mom and pop business, if you will, just doesn't seem like the real moneymaker I guess we thought it might be a couple of years ago. I know some guys that are making some good money in the business, and at times, we've been busy, but it'd be nice to be busier. We're still going to be struggling to get some of the business that we would like to have. At the same time, it's a growing technology, and next year will be even more growth.
With two businesses, is there a chance that you'll actually be competing with yourself?
No, they're focusing in two different directions. The DT Aerial, I think what we're doing is really kind of keeping that more, doing the inspection as we do infrared and mapping. And then there's a lot more creative on the green sky system side. And in fact, working on developing a kind of a software suite to integrate all our rich media into what I view as a virtual tour software solution that doesn't exist. My 25 plus years being as a web developer or programmer, I'm kind of looking around on how to share what we create. So that's going to be a little bit more of the focus over there. And then there's also some kind of conservation work and efforts that we're working with some local here in Colorado, the Colorado Preservation Incorporated. So they help preserve landmarks, buildings, so on and so forth. So we're working with them. It definitely keeps both businesses separate.
So on the conservation side, I assume you're using drones to record assets?
It's more than that. Certainly recording the assets and trying to at least digitally record them, because certainly not all buildings and structures and historical monuments are going to be preserved. Sometimes it's just an old broken down building on the corner that just needs to kind of go. So we're definitely doing some work to help categorize and catalog those assets before they do go away digitally. But then there's other preserved monuments or whatever. Como Rail Yard and the Como Hotel is one of the ones we're working with. And they've got some funding to resurrect the train line at the end of that line. And so in that particular case, we're using our digital media to try and share, say, an interpretive experience and get the word out a little bit more that this is the effort they're going through to try and preserve this place and, turn it into something special that is an attraction. So which is a lot more fun than just, documenting an old broken down building.
You mentioned you do a little training as well. How did that come about?
So I was working with Drone U for a little while, and then also doing some stuff with DT on my own, doing mapping and modeling training, the data acquisition. I also do some Pix4D training, so the processing part of things, a couple other apps that we use to do mapping, modeling.
Do you see training as one way for drone operators to generate additional cash flow and create a more balanced operation?
6 months ago, in the courses I was running, one of the students had pointed out there was a fire department that had 11 or 12 Inspire 1s and nobody to operate them because they had nobody to come in and train, their firefighters to do that. So without a doubt, a lot of embracing of the technology without having the proper training and understanding of what it really takes to run a drone operation or a program, I should say, one of those maintenance, the training 107 to camera operations to so on and so forth.
And the need is so great in some industries that anyone with experience is being sought out.
A woman who had been flying for like 3 weeks or something, her company said, "Hey, come on in and train us how to fly these drones." And she said, "I've only been flying for 3 weeks." And they were like, "Well, that's 3 weeks longer than we have. And so you know more. So now you're the expert." And I think that's going to continue. But then you're also seeing, say, various different companies offering training at a larger scale. And yeah, that's going to be necessary to really make sure our national airspace is safe and we operate within all the, our guidelines and rules.
So what else do you feel you need to do to grow your business?
Ooh, the $1 million question in a certain sense. It's something that I've always sort of held as quality is always going to be kind of number one, and just perfecting your craft and us continuing to do that. We see the more we do that, the more, it's just creating better business. But I think there's some unknowns, really. What's going to happen with, again, this idea of these larger companies coming in and doing some of the fulfillment that we thought the sole proprietor or smaller business was going to do.
Do you feel that there's an organization that represents the interests of the sole proprietor or the small business person?
No, I really don't. I think it's kind of shifting away from that too. Locally, there's certainly smaller entities that get together. I'm lucky to be where I am, and the Denver, Boulder area is one of the hotbeds for this industry. There's a variety of local chapters of meetups, groups, and whatever that advocate for the smaller business, but on a national level or anything larger, I just don't see it.
I'd like to backtrack to something that we talked about earlier on expectations. You had mentioned that you did meet some of your expectations, and then we got sidetracked on another question. So what were the expectations that you did meet?
One of the things that we really wanted to do was be successful in moving into becoming drone operators. And I mean, I picked up a camera as trying to be a real photographer in 1984. And that was being able to put camera in a three-dimensional space anywhere was just a new thing for me. And so I was able to just take my photography to a whole nother level because of it. So that kind of expectation, if you will, was always met along the way. And the technology is always, DJI has a reputation one way or the other. They definitely know how to build nice cameras that you can fly for fairly inexpensively and fairly easily. So I think that's the big part of it, is we really did see it was an industry we could move into and it would be able to pay the bills. Sometimes it's a little harder to do that some days than others, but so that definitely met at least my expectations.
Doug, is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
One of our first customers, after we did the job for them, they told us in the end that they went with us just because they saw the quality that we were going to provide, and even to the point of saying, the other guys that bid were half as much, but we went with you because of your quality. And I try to tell that story quite a bit, especially around people that are, just getting into the business, because we've seen a lot of, there's still people still getting, I see it all the time. Hey, I just got my 107. I'm going to be a drone pilot. It's like, wow, 4 years later, that's still happening. So cool.
That's it for episode 199 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Doug La Farge of DT Aerial Systems and Green Sky Systems. I want to thank Doug for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about DT Aerial Systems or Green Sky Systems, or want to connect with Doug, check out his webpage at dtaerialphoto.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate or patreon.com/droneradioshow. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.